The rigging of Libor altered the benchmark for rates on trillions of dollars in transactions across the globe.
If you've saved your money, it's in the bank, and some government comes along and says, we want a part of it now, even though you paid income tax on it, that's a money grab.
Michael Saris, finance minister until this week, says economic recovery is a long way off.
That for them, taxes are just costs. They have their houses, apartments.
And welcome back to the funkiest 15 minutes in talk radio. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Monica Solmark.
You are part of the solution because we're the team that does not take any of the BS handed out by government because we have the solutions. We have the internet, and we are on your side. So make sure you stay tuned while we take on the financial infrastructure and show it for exactly what it is, touching people where they do not wish to be touched. Let's run this clip. Let's talk about it. Libor, right on the mainframe of Radio Free Canada.
A federal judge has dismissed nearly all the claims and lawsuits filed against major banks for involvement in manipulation of the global interest rate Libor. The rigging of Libor altered the benchmark for rates on trillions of dollars in transactions across the globe, meaning millions of borrowers paid the wrong amount on their loans. Plaintiffs, including the city of Baltimore, had filed antitrust and racketeering claims against firms such as Bank of America, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Citigroup. But U.S. District Judge Naomi Rice Buchwald dismissed nearly all the claims, citing technical grounds that the plaintiffs can't claim antitrust injury. The dismissals were issued without prejudice, meaning they cannot be appealed. A limited number of claims under the Commodity Exchange Act were, however, allowed to proceed to trial. A handful of banks have already paid around $2.5 billion in fines for the Libor scandal, but have avoided criminal charges and payouts of damages to the scandal's victims. Meanwhile, the former Justice Department official who led the agency's investigation of Libor in the financial crisis is taking a post at a law firm that represents Wall Street firms who face federal scrutiny. Lanny Brewer left as head of the Justice Department's criminal division last month. In the latest sign of the revolving door between Wall Street and agencies that purport to oversee them, Brewer is returning to his former employer, the law firm Covington, where he is expected to defend corporate clients and receive a salary of $4 million a year.
Wow, talking about stuff that we cannot make up. Libor is the biggest scam in financial history. Did you hear about it?
Actually, you told me about it last week.
Yeah. And that's how well informed you are.
Yeah, it's so much on the radar.
Yeah, it is. And it kind of blows me away because they're not talking about it in mainstream news, CBC, Global.
Well, you know what happened? Remember the S&L crisis?
Okay.
Okay, a lot of bankers went to jail over that.
Right.
So you know what they did? They changed the laws.
Oh, naturally.
That's why they can get away with this. That's why these claims are being dismissed on a technical basis.
When greed becomes the main focus of a society, plundering becomes a legal entity, and we realize that's the truth. We're going to be talking about banking, the fact that banks make money up out of nowhere as Radio Free Canada continues its focus on the corruption of the banking system. You are tuned in to The Revolution. We are televising it. Let's run this.
Thank you. Hello. May I ask you a question? You bet. Are you aware of the bail-in provisions in the new 2013 federal budget?
Can you believe it? Cyprus?
Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of it.
Do you have any? Could you make a quick comment?
Well, I'm surprised that we haven't heard more about this through the media, but it's being downplayed too much. But I'm thinking it will come up much more over the next several weeks because it's so anti-democratic. It's so unbelievable. You wouldn't think this could happen in Canada, but apparently it's in the legislation on page 144 and 145.
Yep.
I heard that too. Do you call that money grab in Cyprus?
Of course, that's a money. Well, it's in Cyprus. It's a money grab. If you've saved your money, it's in the bank, and some government comes along and says, "We want a part of it now," even though you paid income tax on it. That's a money grab.
Now, just to bring you up to speed, Bill Vandersam is talking about the fact that our banking regulations will allow international corporations to demand your savings make up for their shortfalls.
That's right. They're going to socialize the losses amongst their depositors.
In Canada. That means your money is not safe in your bank account anymore.
And this is built into our 2013 budget.
Yeah, they've actually built it in. Now, did you hear anything about that?
Well, it was actually last week was the first time when we did our show on Cyprus. And I am curious as to the difference between taxpayers and depositor.
Yeah.
Well, the depositor, if you read the fine print when you open your account, you are actually an investor in the bank and responsible whether it falls or not.
And it used to not be like that. It used to be that we were protected from the bank screwing up. If they screwed up, they lost money, but it never affected our bank accounts.
So, and don't I need to have a bank account to have a mortgage?
Yes, you need a bank account to have a job.
Yeah, most places you have to have a pre-authorized bank account.
So what it is major international banks and national banks like the Royal Bank are holding you hostage, holding the government hostage for their screw-ups. And in their own system. This is the way that the Cyprus deal is panning out, and we see it for what it is.
You know, they're taking as much as 40% out of people's savings.
Yeah, that's for real.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And the other scam that was involved with that, it wasn't major investors, it was minor investors. It's ma and pa. Okay? They totally have all of these things where they they get their money out of their bank accounts. And what happened was when they closed the Cyprus bank accounts, guys went overseas and cleaned out Cyprus bank accounts because they had access to them in Russia and access to them in Asia.
Well, that's right. You know, you can't have your best customers getting angry at you.
No, because they make profit, and that's more important than your bank accounts. But right now, Canada's banks and your savings accounts are at risk. Where's major news on this?
Well, you know, they got to cover things like, you know, Stephen Harper going to get pandas.
So let's take a look at Cyprus and see what happened as a result of this.
Cypriots have been facing closed doors at the banks again. This time it's a strike held by workers who are fearful for their pensions after the country's two largest lenders were hit with huge losses under an international bailout agreement. The Bank Employees Union called a 2-hour stoppage on Thursday morning. Michael Saris, finance minister until this week, says economic recovery is a long way off.
If one wants to be realistic, I think the prospects of the economy for the next few months are really very, very unfavorable.
Haris Georgiadis has succeeded Saris at the helm of the fragile economy. He says Cyprus is committed to meeting all the terms of its €10 billion rescue package from the EU and the International Monetary Fund, secured at the end of March.
So right now we're seeing that the big banking scam is on.
That's right, but it's being noticed by a lot of people now.
Because we have the internet. Okay? But you got to remember, you have to explain to ma and pa in Canada now that we're at risk from the International Monetary Fund, which is made up from nowhere.
And they don't even have any money. All they do is, you know, give you debt.
You have promissory notes from countries that are going bankrupt. That's the International Monetary Fund.
They're bankrupt.
Yes.
All they have is collateralized debt obligations.
So you really got to work on keeping your head up, keeping confident, but not trusting banks like the Royal Bank in Canada, which is not informing you that your savings are at risk right now.
And making major profits, too.
Right.
Naturally.
So, of course, we stand on the back and we go, what the heck is going on? The super rich people are getting away with it. And one of the ways that they sewered the country was
tax havens.
And let's take a look at that.
Presidents, business leaders, arms dealers, all exposed for keeping their wealth offshore. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists has obtained an unprecedented trove of information about people keeping their cash in tax havens. The names of thousands of people have been revealed and their wealth management plans disclosed. Many involve companies set up in the British Virgin Islands or BVI. Several high-profile politicians have been named and potentially shamed. French President François Hollande's campaign manager, Jean-Jacques Augier, has links to a BVI company. While the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, and members of his family are also named within the leaked information. Two daughters of Aliyev, who built up his wealth in the oil industry, are identified as holders of offshore entities. The wife of Russian Deputy Prime Minister Igor Shovalov is also named within the leaked information, which is expected to cause global shockwaves. Those who don't declare their offshore interests face legal action in their home countries. In Cyprus, its offshore banking status led to an influx of cash, mainly from Russia, inflating the banking sector and disrupting the economy.
So we say wow. Do you got a wow for me?
Oh, wow.
OMG.
OMG is right.
Now, what's happening right now is super rich people in Canada are extracting huge amounts of money out of the country and taking it and sticking it on offshore accounts.
Yes, and they do that so they don't have to pay any taxes.
Yes. Okay, to avoid taxes. But now we're getting more taxes as individuals. We pay 65% of our income in taxes. They pay 0.5% of their profit. It's major corporations and major banks. And that's the way things work. We have corporations on welfare right now.
Yes, I know. Well, it's all about wealth transfer. Transferring the wealth from us to them.
Yes, to get it away from us. Take a look at the Four Horsemen. Amazing documentary on this. But hard to keep your head up with all that, eh?
Yes.
Well, I'm happy that these people are being exposed.
Yes.
I'm thrilled about that.
I think we should run another one, yes?
Yeah, there's some talk about German tax havens as well.
No way. Not the Germans.
The Germans who are actually causing the major problems in the IMF right now through their policies.
They pretty much run the Eurozone.
So let's take a look at the way they're scamming us.
Is it that bad money's being locked away in these tax havens?
It is very clear that for the very rich, for the ultra-rich, who can buy just anything, who are billionaires, that for them taxes are just costs. They have their houses, apartments, real estate all over the globe. For them it doesn't matter where they live, so for them it matters we don't want to pay taxes. And that's why they go anywhere, not just to Panama.
And a big difference between tax evasion, tax avoidance, isn't there? What are they doing?
In fact, you know, these huge investors, they are nowadays doing a mix of investments. A part of it is highly speculative. A part of it is in real value economy, like car companies, car factories, for example. And a part of it is, of course, in tax havens. That's usual with them. That's their usual business. And they do it because they have no mother country to themselves, so to say.
I mean, the big names here involved, allegedly Porsche, Volkswagen, as well as Germany's richest woman, all found to have shell companies in Panama. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Depends how you interpret it, I guess, whether it becomes tax avoidance, tax evasion. But what can you do to stop these loopholes?
It is very clear there is no international, or very little, too little international cooperation on this. And of course, you know, if you have families who would not notice that they lost the 15 million euros necessary for one of the big German parties for their whole federal election campaign, you know, that is nothing, that's peanuts to them. So, you know, democracy is left out in this kind of business.
Christoph, thanks for your...
Democracy left out of the business.
Sounds like Canada.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but don't we have elected representatives?
And not in the banking industry.
Of course not. And who actually runs the country?
Is the banking industry.
I would think so.
So we will not have a democracy until we vote on bank policy. And that's one thing that they refuse to do. Remember, the Fed in the United States is not a government entity. It's a private bank.
Oh, I know that.
And the IMF is a private bank.
It's a central bank, yeah.
That's right. Okay, the International Bank of Settlements is a central private bank. All we have to do is scrape off the top, and the country would be just fine. But far be it from me to point out solutions that work.
And how few people actually know this is all going on.
Yeah.
It's not on the media.
Fiat currency, making money up from nowhere, is what we operate on in society, but we do not need the bankers to run this system.
Well, to be honest, there's nothing wrong with fiat currency. It's the interest they charge on it.
Well, and the policies that they do for sending it out. It's causing poverty right now. If you shop at Walmart, if you could create investment portfolio through the Royal Bank, you're supporting banksters, and you're supporting poverty. Time to change it. Start investing in your local businesses and people like us at Radio Free Canada. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And I'm Monica Solmark.
We're steering our way through the nonsense. Stay tuned. We got more coming up, and we're going to talk about the homeless in just a bit. Radio Free Canada. Continue being awake and relax. Everything's going to be fine.